So the last part where I discuss the associates angles and the angles and quadrants is the angles and trig functions. As I mentioned, I didn't really know what to name this, so I just decided on this naming. So it's just one example I want to go through. So it links everything I've explained so far. So all together in the previous videos. So you have, the question asks to find an angle less than 360 that has the same cosine as 500. More clearly, the question should have been find the angles here. So it could be the angles and then maybe in brackets. So what it means is that there you have cos 500, and I want another set of angle that would give me the same value. Well, 500 is beyond 360, which means, as I've been mentioning a lot of time, go back and reduce it to your acute angle, because it's easier to find the acute angle and then find the associated angles with it. So you can evaluate this and see what it's going to give you. So is it a positive cosine, negative cosine, and then you're able to know where you need to be in here. But you can also find out once you know what 500 is within 360. So 500 goes 360, and then the other rotation is 720. So obviously you're not going to go to full rotations, so it's within 2 rotations. So it's less than 720, obviously. So you have the 360 here, and then you go a bit extra on top. So in order to know what this extra bit is where you're returning, just have 500 minus 360, and that's going to give you 140. So we are now nicely within something less than 360. So 140 is here. So we are in the second quadrant. So the second quadrant is when cosine is negative, which means that we don't actually have one angle, we have 2 angles that would have the same cosine as 500. So it would be the second quadrant and the third quadrant. So we need the third quadrant as well. If you want to be picky, you can just say, oh, well, that's just 140 as well. So if you want, that could be your final answer. Technically there is another solution. So I know I said reduce it to the acute angle. Right now what we did is we found it within the 360. So this 140, so in order to find the third quadrant value, this came from 180 minus the acute angle, and that gave us 140. So 180 minus 140 is equal to 40. So that's the acute angle we have here. But we don't use it because that's going to give us a positive cosine, but our cosine 500 and our cosine 140 is giving us a negative cosine. So what we're going to do is take that and go 180 plus 40, so we have 220. So we have 140, 220, and 500. You can use a calculator to check. They're all going to give you the same value. They're going to give you, in decimals, they're going to give you 0.766, and that's to 3 decimal places. So hopefully that was clear. So always, if it's an angle bigger than 360, reduce it back, and then identify which quadrant it is. And as I mentioned in the previous video, you need to know the sign of it to know which quadrants you're going to deal with, and then take it back to the acute angle to know what you have to add and subtract in each quadrant.